He's a preacher, but not the average kind. He's a preacher. He'll make you laugh till you cry. He'll open your eyes and change your life with food for your soul, unpasteurized. Yeah, it's good for your heart, mind, body, and soul. It'll help you get to heaven, the ultimate goal. So come listen a while. You might be surprised. It's food for your soul, unpasteurized. His sarcasm might make you roll your eyes, but it's food for your soul, unpasteurized.
Hey friends, my name's Pastor Bruce, and this is the Unpastorized Podcast, and with me is...
I'm Sara Merriweather. I'm going to be Pastor Bruce's co-host and the occasional sidekick.
Yeah, this is our first kind of run-in with doing a podcast. We've been talking about it for a couple years, so how it's going to go, how everything's going to be laid out. It's kind of interesting. We're figuring it out. The background of the podcast is we really came up with this idea during COVID as maybe something we could do. But as time went on, we got busy, as happens in church life. And so we're just trying to figure out how to do this thing called podcast. So we thought we'd do a kind of a slow roll on it and give just a brief introduction and some background and some rules to our podcast and kind of go from there.
Yep. So this is episode number 1. If you found us, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thanks for finding us. We're going to have this we're going to be on our YouTube channel, so you can find us at youtube.com/Jerome Church Online. You can find that in today's show notes. We'll also be wherever you listen to podcasts. We are still working on getting that. As it turns out, we got to have this episode done before we can get out there and publish it. But you'll see lots of information on that. And if you're listening, that means you've found us. So welcome. Pastor Bruce, let's start off and tell people a little bit about you, and I'll talk about me, and just so people know who we are and what we're doing here on this podcast.
Well, I am an ordained United Methodist pastor. We're considered an elder in the United Methodist Church. I've currently been at Jerome since 2020, right when COVID started, which is probably where this podcast, like I said, started a little bit.
Welcome to church, right?
I've been in ministry, ordained ministry for about 10 years, been working at a church since about 2008. Love it here at Jerome, and looking forward to this podcast. A little bit about me is I'm married, have one child, and really you're going to find out I'm a little bit sarcastic at times, which is where we came up with the name Unpastorized, and we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes.
Yep. No, that's great. So a little bit about me. My name's Sara Merriweather. As I said, I am the executive director at Jerome Church, which is a United Methodist church. We're located in the Dublin, Plain City, Ohio area. You can look us up on a map. We'd love to have you come visit us if you are around. And so I on staff here, I love serving on staff. I've been on staff more than a decade in a lot of various formats. And for me personally, I am married to my wonderful husband, Rob. We have 2 teenage boys that are incredible. They're 13 and 16. And really, I love being a mom. I love working at a church. And I also coach some golf on the side. So you may hear me talk about golf. Pastor Bruce and I share, as our staff says, sometimes a very weird sense of humor, definitely a lot of sarcasm along the way. And so what we're hoping here is that we'll be able to do a podcast that is informative and helps you grow in your faith, but also hopefully you don't think we're giant sticks in the mud. Right? We're going to have some fun.
Yeah, and that's the idea behind Unpastorized. It's taking very churchy ideas sometimes and just trying to break it down into a way people can understand. We talk about anything from sacred jealousies we have for other denominations to seminary education and theological ideas, and it's going to be mixed with sarcasm and just a couple of regular people. Yeah, I'm a pastor, but I'm a regular person. Let me just tell you, I don't have this all figured out yet.
Right. Right. I mean, I think that's super important, right? We're not here to say like, oh, we've got all the answers. I think what we're hoping to say is we are going to ask the questions with you and journey alongside with you as our listener, as our viewer. And hopefully we can grow closer to God together. Right.
Yeah. And it's going to have a United Methodist twist, a Wesleyan twist, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to try to take church and our faith seriously without realizing we don't always have to take ourselves so seriously.
Right. Yeah. Anybody who knows you and I will know that is not a problem that we have. We do not take ourselves too seriously most of the time.
No, we laugh at ourselves most of the time. And hopefully you'll laugh with us. Now, the other thing we want to talk about is our overall goal is just to find a place of growth and to draw closer to God. That's always going to be our goal, whether you agree with us all the time or disagree with us. This is part of the journey. We have to learn how to be in community, in a loving community with one another as we learn to grow deeper and be in community with God. So it's not a unique idea, but it's one we just want to put our twist on. And that's why we chose a podcast. Sarah and I both have a passion to believe that church exists for those who aren't here yet. That's the primary purpose of the church, is to reach out to those who are not here yet. And we believe in the local church has the best place for community and equipping disciples of Jesus is right here where we are, which is one of our calls to ministry.
Right. So what actually, I'm going to jump in here, Pastor Bruce, and say for a moment, what I want to say is, if you're local to this area and you don't have a church home, my goodness, we would love to have you here at Jerome. But that is not our first and foremost goal. What we really want you to hear from this is that we want you to have a place to call home as your church home. Having a church home is going to be the center of your community. And so often in our world anymore, church is not at the center of people's lives. And our prayer is that this might be sort of an avenue, a path for you to maybe reconnect to this local church or to your own local church, wherever you might be.
And you're going to hear that idea of community over and over again. We hope this podcast may be a starting point for you. You're more than welcome to join us online. We have those kind of resources also. But eventually, we want you to find a church community where you are, to join together in learning and support and mission and to reach out to the world. That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, for sure. Now, one thing we laughed about when we were getting ready for this, and we have been talking about this since 2020, so it's been a while, but it does sort of a little bit feel like we're jumping on a bandwagon, right? Everyone's got a podcast.
Yeah.
So why a podcast?
That's a bit of a tricky question. And if you look, even the title of this first podcast is called "Kicking and Screaming," because I've kind of been dragged into this kicking and screaming of you don't have time, but we have to do it. But it's important for us. So how this idea came about. Like I said, it was during COVID, and it was just a way for us to communicate primarily with our own people here at Jerome. So you're definitely going to hear a church slant towards what is authentic to hear for us here at Jerome Church. And the other thing is we want to bring a personal connection in a digital age. And we're actually sitting in a studio. We're actually recording this on video. And during COVID, one of the things we did is we actually turned one of our classrooms that wasn't being used anymore into a recording studio. On the other side of where we're sitting are two different stages, if you will, that we can use to record all kinds of things just to reach out and connect with people in new ways. And podcasts aren't a new idea, but they are a new way for ministry to happen. And that's why we want just a different slant. This podcast is going to be about all kinds of things, as I said, about sacred jealousies and some theological ideas turned simple. And maybe if there's questions about one of my sermons one week, or we may do interviews one week. It's going to be a rotating format of what this looks like, but always with the same goals. It's to make it okay to ask questions. We don't know everything either, but I've always told my own people, if I have to tell you I don't know, I will journey with you to find the answer. And that's the most important thing to me. And so we're going to learn together, and we're going to work out our faith with fear and trembling and a side of probably a little bit of weird humor and sarcasm. And just we're doing this because we want to have fun too, because this is a good way for Sarah and I. Sometimes we'll tell you if we're working something or having a knee-jerk reaction to something, we're going to tell you right away, and we're going to work it out right here in the view as we talk.
It's free therapy for us too, right? I mean, that's kind of where we are.
Public therapy, that's always very good.
It seems to be a safe one. You talk about weird humor and sarcasm. I do want to note that, before we got started today, I brought this is Bendable Jesus. He's been around for a while, and when I brought Bendable Jesus and put him in here, if you're not watching this, you can see I've got a little Bendable Jesus sitting on my microphone. And Pastor Bruce said to one of our other staff members, he said, Pastor Bruce, you got a lot of toys in your office. So what did you say?
I have a lot of toys.
What'd
I said, go pick a toy that most represents me. And she brought me one of my famous buttons that sits on my desk, and it's a button of Oscar the Grouse that makes noise. So, for instance, I press it and it says,
"Stop being so nice and cute."
Perfect.
And you're gonna hear all kinds about toys and things. They represent me. One of the things we talk about a lot at Jerome Church is we just want to be authentic. We just want to be who we are for this community as we strive to center our lives on loving God and loving neighbor and being followers of Jesus. And so this podcast, in that way, it's for everyone.
Yeah.
If you want to learn about the church, grow in your faith, and enjoy maybe some weird humor, probably going to be something for you. And if it's not for you, it's okay. I'm not everybody's favorite station. I'm not everybody's favorite flavor. That's okay.
Well, that's right. I mean, because as we said, everybody's doing a podcast, but we're going to try to put the Bruce and Sara slant on this. We're going to have some great guests along the way. It's really just hoping that this is a stopping point maybe in your week. Maybe you're, on a walk. Maybe you're in your car. Wherever you are listening to this, it's a stopping point for you to maybe, enjoy, get to know us a little better, feel like you're maybe connected to your local church, but more importantly, and most importantly, an opportunity to grow as a disciple and follower of Jesus.
Absolutely. And just so you understand, another thing about this podcast is it's definitely going to come from a local church perspective. I can only speak to the environment, the context I'm in. And so you're going to hear a lot about Jerome Church, our personal experiences here, and always in a respectful way. The other reality with that is we're going to speak through the lens of this context, like giving sermon examples, using our families and kids, and we'll just say we're trying not to pick on you, but we
might pick on you a little bit. It's okay. If it feels personal, it's not. Just,
we only hurt the ones we love deeply.
Oh, come on, Pastor Bruce.
It's all right.
No, but we're going to have a lot of fun, seriously. So, I think it's important. You've already probably noticed as you're listening here today, there are a few things I think are important to kind of know what to expect from us. And the first one is that Pastor Bruce and I have this tendency, and our staff would validate, I think, that we don't always stay on the topic that we started on, although we do try to do a pretty good job of bringing it back. Am I right?
It always tends to wrap back around.
It wraps back around. We'll bring it back. So if you find us in the middle and go, where are they going with this? We're going to do our best to bring it back. And if it really gets too far out there, hopefully we'll just name it, claim it, and we can laugh about it together.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's Sarah's fault.
Fair enough. That's fair enough. I also think it's a good thing to note here. Pastor Bruce, I've done quite a few Bible studies with you, and you have something that you like to call Bruce's Rules of Bible Study. And as we were preparing for this podcast, I thought this would be a great thing for you to share because I think it's also rules that can apply for being in Christian community together, which is really what we're doing through this podcast. Even though it's you and I sitting in a room recording and people listening, we're creating community, and we hope that you as our listeners and viewers will respond back in that way. So I'd love for you to share your rules of Bible study here.
Yeah, I've used these rules of Bible studies in a couple different churches now, and what I found, it's a way to name and claim the main things we can agree on as Christians, and then go on to be able to talk about everything else, which we can call fun fodder. In a way, it takes salvation off the table because we can agree. Well, let me just start. There's 5 rules to Bruce's Bible studies. I ask that we agree on the top 4, and I'll explain the 5th one after. The first rule is, can we agree that it's our faith in God's grace where salvation is found through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. We believe that our faith in God's grace is enough for salvation, and it's shown through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The second rule is, can we agree that we're supposed to love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength? The third rule is that we are supposed to love our neighbors. And the fourth rule is Jesus told us to go make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teaching them all that Jesus taught us. And so those are very basic things. It kind of names out what we're supposed to do because Jesus told us to, and it names where our salvation is found. Now, the fifth rule is the devil doesn't need an advocate, but I'm pretty good at it.
And I am too, to be fair. We'll challenge each other.
Yeah, and we're gonna challenge each other on, do we truly believe what we say? 90% of the time or more, we probably agree with each other. But oftentimes we have to challenge each other to understand, do we really believe what we believe? It helps us grow in our faith. And we'll try to name those times that we do that. But the main thing is that we want to have this podcast centered around the mission that we have here at Jerome, and it's a biblical mission. We want to love God, love people, and make disciples. And so everything we try to do oftentimes will come back to this idea. Is this how we love God, love people, and make disciples? And that's always going to be, like we said, with our local context in mind. And also, we're a United Methodist Church. We have a Wesleyan background. That's what we're going to do.
Right. And then if we can agree on those 5 rules of Bible study, or in this case, 5 rules of Christian community, the rest of what we're going to discuss here, when either maybe you and I disagree on something, or maybe you as our listener, maybe you disagree with one of our opinions, because again, we're just humans with opinions, right? We can call that all fun fodder because we already agree on the main stuff, and we're able to keep the main thing the main thing.
Absolutely. So before we go on this first podcast and this first attempt, we're going to keep this up here just to kind of lay out the rules, and we're going to get into some more serious study coming up. I used to have some engineers at the first church I worked at down in Lindenwold, down in Hamilton, Ohio. And the engineers were GE engineers, and they used to say, how we do things is I'm going to tell you what I told you. I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I've already told you. And so we just want to, every episode, kind of have an episode recap. So Sarah, what have we talked about today?
Sure. So, we wrote some notes, but this one makes me laugh still. And I think the first one, Pastor Bruce, is that we're just going to call out the fact we're weird, but we love Jesus. So there's that, right? Yeah. So if you think we're weird, cool, so do we. But part of the reason we're weird is because we love Jesus. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, in this podcast, it'll be an ongoing theme about how being a Christian should look different.
Absolutely.
Right? So that was sort of the first thing. The second thing there is, as Pastor Bruce said it, and we just said a few minutes ago, we're going to try to keep the main thing the main thing.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So we hope that in this podcast, we're going to speak to Christians as a whole. But also, as we said, we're going to speak to the context of here at Jerome Church in Plain City, Ohio, right? This is what we know. We can't be anything different, but we're really hoping that if this is not your local church, we're hoping that something we say here might connect you to your own local church.
That's always the hope.
Right.
Yeah.
And the next one is, we're going to strive to be authentic. Not a lot of pretense here. You kind of get what you get, and hope you like that. Hope that our authenticity is something that you can relate to, and that maybe helps you grow in your faith. And I know it'll help Pastor Bruce and I grow in our faith as well.
Absolutely. And you're going to find out that's a very Wesleyan idea of authentic. We'll actually talk about that a little bit during our first episode.
Yeah,
probably.
We sure will. So, and, as we close it out, I think it's important to know that we're doing this partly because we think it's going to be fun.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this.
Right?
I actually, for 2 years, have been dreading it.
Yeah.
Because it's like giving a sermon. You feel like you have to say the exact same thing the exact right way. And this is much more off the cuff and enjoyable. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. We do a lot of, video editing and whatnot. And sometimes it's really challenging. I feel like I've got to do 8 takes because I say a word wrong or, trip over something. And, we're hoping that in this format, we can just be who we are. We hope you love us for it. Hopefully you don't hate us for it, but we hope that we can have some good times together and that we can do it, be authentic and be fun together.
Absolutely. And what's the final one? Ultimately?
Yeah. Ultimately, what we hope is that this glorifies God, and it's going to help you take your next step in your faith. That's what we're going with.
Whatever that step is.
Yeah.
whether it's finding a church home or if you're already in a church home, maybe it's opening their Bible for the first time, maybe it's just starting to join in a community. We just want you to take that next step, whatever that may be.
Whatever it looks like for you, we're here to help. So here are some things you should know. If you want to contact us, if you've got questions, there are some ways you can do that. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and leave a comment on there. We do check those. And so that's a great way to get a hold of us. You can also email us at podcast@jeromechurch.org, and I will put that in our show notes today, so you'll have that information. I would invite you to, like and subscribe, share this with people that you know. We'll help you understand where to find our podcast as we get more of that information ourselves here. But, we're just so glad that you're here, that you've tuned in. If you've listened this far, know that we are praying for you. And as Pastor Bruce says, we want you to know that God loves you, and there is just not a thing you can do about it.
Amen. You folks have a blessed week. We can't wait to hopefully hear from you.
All right. So until next time, I'm Sarah. This has been Pastor Bruce, and this is the Unpastorized Podcast.
Come listen a while. You might be surprised. It's food for